Good morning and welcome to a post-Easter edition of Morning Scone. That's what we'll be calling it now. I ran an unofficial Twitter poll last week asking if I should call the show Breakfast Scone, Morning Scone, or Who Cares You Idiot. And as you might expect, Who Cares You Idiot naturally had the most votes, but we're going to stick with Morning Scone because that got the second most votes. So, as I mentioned, I'm doing this show for you. So, what you want me to talk about and things like that, I'll certainly air toward. Now, full disclosure, I'm in a lot of pain right now. I have a degenerative disc disease in my back, and every now and again it flares up. And on Saturday, tweaked it, flared up. Was hoping it would get better Sunday. It didn't. So I really haven't been able to sleep much last night, just tossing and turning in a lot of pain. So hopefully we can get some relief today and be on air at 3 o'clock. But since yesterday was Easter and we did not do a full show, I wanted to make sure that I got thoughts on LSU's series win over Mississippi State, and then the Pels' really disappointing loss last night. Saturday, Game 3, I said that there, with 22 games remaining in conference play, there's no such thing as a must-win. But Saturday's Game 3 for LSU against Mississippi State was really important because you want to make sure, especially while you have so many injured players, including your middle infield and your 1 and 2 hole hitters, that you get the wins you're supposed to get and win series that you're more than capable of winning, understanding what's ahead. So a Mississippi State team that's really struggling coming in your building, you need to win that series. And LSU did enough to win it in large part thanks to Mikhail Hilliard, who was awesome again. His only loss on the season is a tough luck 1-0 loss at Vanderbilt a week ago. But 6 innings, no runs on 3 hits, 9 strikeouts, a career high for Hilliard, and 2 walks. The thing that's so impressive about Hilliard, and we've talked about it since the beginning of the season, is he's not overpowering. I mean, his fastball is 86, 88, but everything he throws moves. His breaking ball has incredible. We've talked about the spin rate on his curveball, but even his fastball, it moves, and so it's just really hard to square him up. As opposed to, for example, Zach Hess comes at you with 95, 96, and you turn it around, it's going to go a long way. That's not to say Hess isn't great; he's awesome. Don't misunderstand me. It's just they're different stylistically. Hilliard's not going to blow you away like Hess can with 96, 97, or that wicked slider. But everything he throws moves, and maybe more importantly, is his composure. There were 2 spots, once in the first inning where his defense let him down. There was a runner in scoring position. Hilliard got out of it with a big strikeout. And then again in the 6th, in a really tough spot with Mississippi State threatening to take the lead, Hilliard came back again with another big strikeout to get out of that inning on a big breaking ball, caught the guy looking. So the one question I've been asked more than any is, hey, do you consider moving Hilliard to Saturday? And I don't think that's wise for a couple of reasons. Number one, Caleb Gilbert's pitching well enough for you to win at this point. I mean, that was the one game that you won at Vanderbilt. So I don't know that you have to make that change now because Gilbert's giving you what you need on Saturday to be competitive and to be in the ball games. And what's more is that Hilliard on Sunday gives you, in many ways, what Eric Walker gave you Sundays last year, which was an advantage going into every series because there just aren't many teams that are going to have an Eric Walker on Sunday, and you're going to have an advantage in that spot. So really, if you go into the weekend thinking, all right, let's take 2 or 3, if Hess and Gilbert can split those first 2 games, you're going to have an advantage every weekend to win that series because you're just going to be better on the mound than most anybody you play on Sunday. So I like Hilliard where he is in that Sunday spot. Now, if A.J. Labus comes along, if Gilbert continues to struggle again, then maybe you can reassess that. But if nothing else, what's happened here is with Hilliard's emergence as a starter and with Labus really establishing himself in the midweek now, is you've got 4 starting pitchers. And I know it's way too early to start talking about postseason, but when you get into tournament play, like you've got to have that 4th starter or you're going to have to look, I mean, basically what happened to LSU last year is after Walker's injury, they didn't have their 4th starter. They get into the championship series, and they had to start Russell Reynolds in that game. I mean, that would have been Eric Walker. Or I guess Walker would have pitched in Gilbert's spot, and then Gilbert would have pitched that game. But point is, you understand it put LSU behind the 8 ball. in that championship series. So Hilliard and Labus emerging has been just phenomenal. And the other thing from Saturday's game two, if you want something offensively, how about Daniel Cabrera? He homers again. He doubles. He's batting 317 now. Cabrera is, and after the early season struggles and then struggles against lefties, it's taken him roughly half of his freshman season to figure it out and to be really, really, really good. Talked about him so much during the off season, and I've you know got to watch Cabrera over at Traction and got to meet him a little bit, and certainly he's worked a lot with Terrio, and he's just phenomenal. I mean, there's a reason that he was offered high 6 or 7 figures to go play pro baseball out of high school, and he turned it down just because he loves LSU and wanted to be a Tiger. So if you're an LSU baseball fan, rejoice that Daniel Cabrera is on your team and you got him for this season and then 2 more because he's awesome. So what's really interesting about this weekend in the SEC? Quick thought here, then I'll get you a quick thought on the Pels too, which lost their 4th straight on Sunday. So LSU got what it needed in that Arkansas Ole Miss series. Neither team swept, so Ole Miss now leads the West at 6-3, and LSU's tied with Arkansas in second place at 5-4, and they have series against both those teams remaining. So the standings have really kind of shaped out just fine for LSU at this point. The most surprising thing of the weekend for me was Georgia winning that series against Texas A&M. So A&M now falls to 3-6. Georgia is tied with Florida for the East lead and the overall conference lead 7-2. And part of me wondered, okay, well, is it a result of scheduling? A&M's had a really tough schedule out the gate, and Georgia was able to win a couple of series early. One against South Carolina, which doesn't really look like the South Carolina they've been. And so I really thought A&M was going to, which is a good team, a veteran team, probably better than its record shows, because they opened the season on the road against Auburn, which at the time was number 11 in the country, and then they were at home against Ole Miss, which is number 4 in the country, and lost 2 or 3 there. So they lost their first 2 series out the gate. So I really thought Georgia would be a get right series for them, but they won on the road and lost that series too. So now I'm kind of wondering, okay, is Georgia for real, or is A&M maybe not as good as we thought they might be at the beginning of the season? And this LSU series is going to be very telling in that regard for both LSU and for A&M. And if nothing else, maybe this just looks like a much more winnable series for LSU than it did 3 weeks ago, or even a week ago, because of the injuries and LSU losing that series at Vanderbilt. But this is a big spot for LSU. Because if we've been over the schedule stuff before, okay, they avoid Florida and Kentucky from the East, and you could look at really tough road series like Ole Miss is obviously great this year, and South Carolina and A&M you could have circled before the season as tough road series, but neither one of those teams look like the traditional power that you'd expect coming into this year. So maybe LSU's catching a further break there. You've seen the emergence of teams like obviously like Auburn and Georgia, who's much better this year. So a lot of times it's cyclical, but maybe LSU caught a bigger break on the scheduling than we even thought. So let's watch this weekend. It's just a huge weekend, I think, for both LSU and Texas A&M to figure out who really is where within the pecking order of the SEC, but a big opportunity. Quick thought on the Pels, and we'll wrap it up here. Pels lost to the Thunder 109-104 on Easter, their 4th consecutive loss, and this one was so disappointing because it was at home against a team that you were jockeying with for playoff position, and the loss drops New Orleans into the 8th seed now. They got 5 games to go, and I do think they are capable of winning all 5 games, starting on the 4th, on Wednesday against the Grizzlies. But they got the Grizzlies, then they got the Suns. So the next 2 are against awful basketball teams that they absolutely should beat. They're at Golden State, who's very likely going to be sitting everybody. And then they have, hold on. I know they're wrapping up at home against San Antonio. But there's one I'm missing there in between as well. Let me see if I can find it. Either way, point being, it's a manageable schedule the rest of the way. Yes, the Golden State game, the second of a back-to-back. It's the Clippers. Forgive me, it's at the Clippers. So the Golden State game, the second of a back-to-back. you wouldn't think that New Orleans is going to be favored. They probably shouldn't be favored in that game, but you never know if Golden State's resting people at that point. This is a winnable stretch, but if you'll allow me to throw out a cliche, this is where you find out what a team's made of. We've all wondered, is this team, ready to take that step, become a playoff team, and be competitive? Well, over the last 2 weeks, they faltered. So let's see if here in this stretch they can maybe gain a little momentum, a little confidence. I mean, Wednesday they've got Memphis at home you absolutely have to win that game, and then you're at Phoenix, which is terrible, and you can absolutely win that game. So you win those two, you get a little momentum. Go to Golden State. Let's see what happens at that point next on Saturday when the Pels are at Golden State. But this is make or break, not just for this season, but you would think for Dell Demps and Alvin Gentry as well, because if they, who a week ago were in the 4 seed, if they blow this and don't get in the playoffs, I don't know how those two survive. So big week, obviously, for the Pels. Big week for LSU baseball as well. Spring football back on the practice field for LSU. So a ton going on. I love this time of year. I love the spring. I love this time of year. There's every sport going on. Major League Baseball opening weekend just happened. So it's a great time in sports. We look forward to seeing you on AFR today at 3 o'clock. Please, if you would, like or dislike, thumb up, thumb down, comment. All those metrics help us. I appreciate it. No matter how you're finding us here, please share it. If you got the link on Facebook, share it. If you got it on Twitter, retweet it. We appreciate it. And just let people know, help spread the word that Breakfast Scone is a great way to start your day. Each day talking some sports. And as always, if there are suggestions you have of things you want me to talk about or ways I can make this better, happy to oblige. So please let me know. Feedback is always welcome. Y'all have a great Monday, and belated Happy Easter.